Tonight I want to talk to you about a new concept to help you understand you. And not just understand you in a general sense, but in a very specific sense, understand the deepest parts of who you are, what makes you tick, the reason why you do what you do, the lens that you see through your relationships and the work and the vision that you have for your life and for others. It's called the 7 Primal Questions, and I want to talk about each question very quickly tonight and also talk to you about how each question expresses this incredible gift that you are probably unaware of right now. But I want to begin by telling you about a story. When I grew up as a little kid, one of my favorite things to do was to go to Disneyland. My family grew up in Southern California, and we would make our annual pilgrimage to Disneyland, and my favorite ride was this ride, the motorboat cruise. And so as an 8-year-old kid, I would get in this little boat, and they would my mom would sit next to me, and I'd get behind the wheel, and I'd control the accelerator and drive this little boat around Fantasyland Lagoon. I was really skillful to make sure that I didn't run into any other boats, and for sure make sure that I didn't run into the people mover pylon and crash into that. I also stayed away from the submarines. I love this ride because it gave me the sense of freedom and adventure, and I felt like I was really good at this for an 8-year-old kid. In fact, as I pulled the boat in, when my ride was over, I pulled the boat in and I would come up to the dock, and it would be about just an inch away from the dock, nice and smooth, and I just nailed it every time. A couple years later, as a much wiser 10 and 11-year-old, I realized that not everything was as it seemed. See, I was turning the wheel, but it only allowed me to turn a little bit, and then it kind of redirected the boat, and I realized that perhaps I wasn't in full control of what was happening here. As you probably know, there was a track underneath this boat that was taking me on a predetermined destination. Walt Disney was not going to allow an 8-year-old to drive around Fantasyland Lagoon wherever he wanted to go. And that's what I want to talk about tonight, is your track. See, what you may not understand right now is that there is a track underneath the water that is controlling everything inside of you. And if you are unaware of that track, you live at a disadvantage. But if you can see that track and understand that track and give language for that track, if you could see how that track impacts your relationships and your work and your parenting, you can live in this empowered place. The primal question is really just a way of understanding our core, deepest need. But this is also very true, the primal question, is that the primal question is a thing underneath the thing that drives everything. See, what happens is, and this is after almost 5 years of research, 6,000 hours of one-on-one interviews that I've done with people, 22 group labs, 32,000 assessments on this concept. This isn't just a nice idea that I hope is true. It actually is true. And then here's the way it works, is that in our early childhood, we are imprinted with a primal question. It is a question that goes unanswered in our early development. And as little kids and young kids, we are just big sponges trying to figure out how the world works, how love works, how security works, how success works, how purpose works. We have all kinds of questions, and some of you grew up in homes where many of those questions were just unanswered. Or maybe they were answered with a no. And what happens is we carry our unique primal question. It gets imprinted in our childhood, and we subconsciously carry it into our adult lives. And we keep asking that question over and over again to our friends, our family, society at large. And when the world answers our primal question with a yes, we feel great. We are our best selves. But when the world answers our primal question with a no or a maybe, we go into what I call the scramble. And the scramble is all the ways that we try to force the answer back to a yes. All the different ways that we try to meet that core, deep need within us. So I want to go through each of the questions, and I want to tell you and kind of give you a sense of how all this works. And the first question is the primal question of, am I safe? And this is the core need for physical and emotional safety. And the imprint of this question is typically what happens in the childhood of a person who has this primal question is that they grew up in chaos. They grew up in a family there was no foundation, there was no safety. In fact, oftentimes there's physical, sexual, emotional abuse happening in the home. And so that child grows up to be an adult, and they keep asking the question, am I safe? Am I safe? And when that question is answered with a yes, life is good. But when it's answered with a no, they go into their scramble. This is my primal question. My imprint looks like this. When I was young, my parents would take me over to a family friend's house and let me spend the night. They trusted this individual. They had no idea that what they were doing was sending their little boy over to somebody's home who did not deserve that trust. Because every time I went over to this person's home, they would sexually abuse me. When I told my parents finally what was going on months after this occurring, we never talked about it again. So you can see how the question of safety gets imprinted in Mike Foster. You know, the two adults that were meant to protect me are not protecting me. One adult is hurting me. And so safety becomes the theme or the lens or the perspective that I have on everything. I carry that question into my marriage. I carry that question into all of my relationships. I carry that question into my work. See, one of the things that the research shows is that we take whatever question we are asking and we put it over everybody else. And we assume everybody else, everybody that we meet is asking the same question. And then what we do is we affirm that, answer that with a yes. You see, the deepest need that you have is the thing that you abundantly give away to others. So it's called the primal gift. And the primal gift for this particular question is the ability to create stability in chaos and conflict. I'm a counselor. I work with people in their pain and their stories. And I always tell people that what I do, and the reason why I'm excellent at what I do is because I take my primal question, I put it over every client, every individual that I meet, and I answer it with a yes. I have to warn people, I'm going to warn you guys tonight, that if we get into a conversation out in the lobby during intermission, just know that you're going to have the tendency to tell me your deepest, darkest secrets after knowing me for about 3 minutes. Why? Because I am going to take my primal question, I'm going to put it over you, and I'm going to help you feel incredibly safe and protected, which will allow you to open up. It's a gift. It's a gift that comes from the wounds that we have. Primal question number 2 is the question, am I secure? This is the core need for financial and relational security. I have a client who flies in on his $30 million jet from Las Vegas down to San Diego. His net worth is probably around $500 million, and he has this as his primal question. He grew up in a home where money was tight. Bill collectors would call at dinner time. There just wasn't enough resource. And even though my client, is incredibly successful and clearly has enough resource and money, he is still driven, and his life is still driven by the question of, am I secure? It's his track. What I always remind people is that math is no match for emotions. And so when we are working together. I'm helping him understand how that track is impacting his 60-hour-a-week life, how he's flying all over the world to build this company, how his wife just wants him to stay home more, but he can't stop working because he doesn't feel financially secure. The primal gift with this question is they make great providers and build foundations for growth. One of the reasons why my client can't stop and step away from his company and dial his work week back is because he's taking his security question and he puts it over his 10,000 employees, and he believes that if he steps away from the role just a little bit, that he puts their financial futures in jeopardy. It's the thing underneath the thing that drives everything. Primal question number 3, am I loved? This is the need to feel known, seen, and emotionally attached. My wife's primal question is this question. She grew up in a home where she was the fourth child came along, and I just joke with her. I tell her that I think your parents were done parenting when you came along. She was a latchkey kid. Parents weren't that interested in her. In fact, the kryptonite for this question is just indifference. When you feel that some people are indifferent to you or don't care about you, you go into your scramble. The other thing that my mother-in-law did, and unfortunately, is that whenever my wife shared about her day at elementary school or the crafts that she did, my mother-in-law just was not interested and talked over my wife. One of the ways that this tool has completely revolutionized my life is through my marriage. My wife and I we've been married for 29 years. And the last few years have been incredible because now we can speak to each other's core needs. We don't deal with the nonsense or the drama anymore. Whenever you have conflict in a relationship, you can be darn sure that it's because you are answering that person's primal question with a no. How many of you are parents? Okay. Here's a little side note for you. You parent to your primal question. You take your primal question and you put it over your kiddos and you want to answer it yes. Some of us often over-index on that yes. See, my kids were incredibly loved by my wife because she took her primal question of am I loved and put it over our kids. And every time my kids went to anybody's house, I was calling up, talking to the parents, making sure that everything was going to be okay. My main goal in parenting was keeping my kids safe. It's the track. And once you understand the track, you understand everything about you and why you are the way you are. The primal gift here is just they're empathy experts and relational superstars. Everybody loves a Q3 because the Q3 loves everybody. Question number 4, am I wanted? This is the core need to feel accepted, pursued, and to belong. My friend Bob Goff, he is a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, and his primal question is, am I wanted? He's the only guy that I know that has sold 4 million books, and at the end of every one of those books, he has included his cell phone number. Why did he do that? Because Bob takes his primal question of am I wanted, and he puts it over every reader, every single one of us, and he just wants to be friends with us. He wants to know that we are included. He is a master includer. He also knows that every time somebody calls that cell phone number at the back of the book and calls Bob, that Bob is getting a yes to his am I wanted question. The primal gift is a superpower of connection and convening. These are expert includers. If you have this question, if this is your deepest need, this is the track that drives your little boat, use it. These make great leaders. They have the ability to gather people, to start things, to get people convened. It's a gift that I don't have because I have the gift of safety. It's a gift my wife doesn't have because she has the gift of love. But you have the gift of belonging. Question 5, am I successful? This is the need to win, contribute, and to have status. Typically, this imprint comes when your family of origin and the environment that you grew up in was very competitive. Mom and dad were very interested in the scoreboard. I have one client who describes it this way, that every time he won on the Little League field or played well as a pitcher, he would get in the car and Dad would be really chatty and excited and there'd be lots of energy on the drive home. But every time he played poorly or didn't do that well or the team lost, every time he got in the car with Dad, there was silence. Again, all of this is just small kids like ourselves trying to figure out how life works. And this is not an opportunity to blame our parents, but it's an opportunity to understand our deepest need and how it works. The primal gift is these people are savvy in strategies to win and succeed. Kobe Bryant, Q5, am I successful? Grew up in a performance-based home. His dad was a professional athlete. Byron Scott, who was the coach of the Lakers when Kobe was playing, he talked about how Kobe would always get to the gym before everybody else. In fact, he shares a story of Kobe Bryant shooting hoops and shooting practice shots for 2 hours before they even turned the gym lights on. Success was what drove Kobe Bryant. He also was an incredibly successful parent. Poured into his kids. He wanted to be successful at everything he did because it's the thing that he wanted most, and it's also the thing that he wanted to give away. Primal question number 6, am I good enough? This is the core need of feeling valued and affirmed for who they are. Many of you grew up in homes where you were criticized and judged. Mom didn't like your friends. Dad didn't like your outfits. There's this constant critiquing. I always kind of joke that every Disney child star who grew up has this question because they were constantly criticized for their performance. Right? And so you carry this into your adult lives, and these people typically tend to struggle with shame and unworthiness. They feel like they're forever flawed, like they can never measure up. If you have a Q6 working for you right now, somebody's primal question is, am I good enough? You will be challenged to give feedback in a healthy way because feedback feels like criticism, and then all of a sudden they're going into their scramble. But their primal gift, it's incredibly powerful. These tend to be our highest achievers who know how to maximize value. They also, when they're living in this place where they know that they are valued, when they are no longer asking the question, but living in this statement of, I am good enough. They're incredible encouragers and infuse value into everyone that they meet. Again, the thing that they need the most is the thing that they want to give away. Question number 7, last question. Do I have a purpose? And this is really the core need for significance and to live a life of impact, which I guess many of you, and probably in this room, may have this question. The research shows that typically people who grew up in religious homes, faith-based homes, get imprinted with this question. You see, it isn't always trauma or some negative event, it's just confusion. And the confusion in your family was, what does purpose actually mean? And so you get imprinted with this question that I'm supposed to have this great calling or this specific pathway that I'm supposed to figure out and discover. And if I don't figure it out, then my life is a complete waste. See, the deepest need that you have is significance and meaning. And when that's answered with a no, you go into your scramble. But the primal gift that you bring is that you are the visionaries with this ability to see the path to impact. You may struggle with the details, but you see the big picture. You can set the pace for all of us because you see things that we do not see. My friend Jonathan runs a talent agency, about 150 employees. And he grew up in a missionary's home, and his primal question is, do I have a purpose? And so every time we sit down, he always is asking me the question like, well, what are you doing? What are you up to? What are the new projects that you're doing, Mike? And that's just how he's wired. It's how he sees everything. But he's also taking his primal question, he puts it over every one of his employees. See, last year, he flew the entire company down to San Diego, and they crossed the border into Tijuana, and they built homes for 3 days on the company's dime. He paid for all the airfare, all the travel. Why? Because Jonathan is all about purpose. Not only his purpose beyond just the business that he does, but the purpose to make an impact in people who have less than we do. But he also wants to give every employee the opportunity to live out their purpose and to have impact. Primal question, the thing underneath the thing that drives everything. And once you see it, once you understand it, once you have language for it, you can begin to understand why you do what you do and be empowered by it instead of be controlled by it. I'm going to get a QR code on the back. If you'd like to take a quick and free assessment to discover what your primal question is, just get out your phones, take a picture of the screen. That will take you to the assessment. It's about 5 minutes, and it will give you your primal question and a little bit of coaching. You can also learn more about the concept and how it works in business and parenting and marriage in your own life at primalquestion.com. Thanks so much for letting me share tonight.